All right, people, welcome to today's episode of Degrees, Dollars and Drama, where we talk about international students and their never-ending quest for a degree, some decent living conditions, and oh yeah, that elusive permanent residency. So if you were in Brampton last weekend, and let's be real, why wouldn't you be? You probably noticed a group of international students standing in the rain, holding signs and protesting. Now you might be thinking, wow, how dedicated. They're protesting for their future. And while that's true, I'm also thinking, who ticked off the weather gods for them to be doing this in a downpour? Like, come on, can't the universe cut these kids a break? At least give them sunshine for their protest. But nope, Canada's like, hey, welcome to our beautiful country. Here's a rainstorm, a rent crisis, and some immigration hurdles. Good luck, eh? And these students? They're fighting for their basic rights while probably wondering how their tuition bills could afford to fund a small island nation. Imagine this. You leave your home country, fly across the world, ready to live the Canadian dream. You know, the one with friendly neighbours and free healthcare, only to be greeted by sky-high rent, shady employers paying you in monopoly money, and immigration policies that make you feel like you're in some kind of survival game show. You thought you were here for a degree, but nah, Canada's like, you're also here for unpaid overtime and a daily struggle for PR. These international students were out there in Brampton, protesting for fair treatment, longer work permits, and a clear path to permanent residency. And let me tell you, their slogan, good enough to work, good enough to stay, catchy, right? It's like the anthem of every exploited worker who's ever been told, sure, we'll pay you eventually, maybe, after 30 more unpaid hours. But here's where it gets juicy. One of the big myths these students are trying to bust is that they're the cause of Canada's housing crisis. Yeah, apparently people think a bunch of students fresh off the plane with backpacks full of ramen noodles are somehow responsible for the fact that rent is through the roof. Really? I mean, sure, they're out here trying to find affordable housing, but I don't think they single-handedly broke the real estate market. Spoiler alert, it's not them. Like, if you really think international students are out here plotting to ruin the housing market, I'd like to introduce you to some facts and maybe a landlord or two who's charging them $2,000 a month for a shoebox. But housing's just the beginning of the saga. Let's talk about the real villain here, the postgraduate work permit, or as I like to call it, the congrats, you graduated. Now the clock's ticking. Permit. You get one of these bad boys after your degree, and the idea is just get a job, work for a year, and we'll totally let you stay forever. Totally. Except plot twist, the work permits expire, the PR system is more backed up than your favourite brunch spot on Sunday morning, and employers are like, sure, we'll hire you, but here's the catch. You'll be working below minimum wage with no overtime and definitely no benefits. But hey, isn't Canadian work experience fun? And just when you think it can't get any worse, students are realizing that some shady employers are actually charging up to $40,000 for something called a labor market impact assessment. Basically a golden ticket to stay in Canada. $40,000, that's enough money to make you question every life choice that led you to this great white north. These students are in a bind. They're working long hours, getting underpaid, and now they're being told, if you want to stay, pay us $40K. Like at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if the next immigration policy is send us your firstborn child and you'll get an extra 6 months of work permit. But hey, don't worry, because according to the government, everything's totally under control. Apparently, if these employers don't follow the rules, they get fined and banned from hiring international workers. Sounds good on paper, right? Except for the part where students are still getting paid less than minimum wage and their paychecks show up later than a Wi-Fi router installation. Now, if you're wondering why these students don't just report the exploitative employers, it's because, get this, if they report them, they might lose their work permit, aka their ticket to stay in Canada. It's like they're trapped in this vicious cycle where they're protecting the same people who are exploiting them because the system's basically set up to make them choose between their future and their dignity. Classic. But here's the real kicker. These international students bring in billions to the Canadian economy every year. Yeah, you heard me, billions. Tuition fees, rent, groceries, Tim Hortons runs, you name it, they're paying for it. And yet, they're still treated like second-class citizens. It's like Canada's motto for them is, Thanks for the cash. Now here's a minimum wage job and a vague promise of PR. So what are these students really asking for? Just a little respect, a chance to live without being squeezed for every last dime, and maybe, just maybe, a realistic path to permanent residency. Is that so much to ask, Canada? But you know what? I have a feeling that after these protests, things are going to change. International students are not just here to study, they're here to fight back. And if Brampton's rainy protest taught us anything, it's that these students aren't backing down, rain or shine. All right, that's it for today's episode of Degrees, Dollars and Drama. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, next time you see international students out there in the rain with their signs, just know they're not only fighting for their future, they're fighting for a little justice too. Stay tuned for our next episode where we'll talk about, well, whatever makes us laugh and cry at the same time. Catch you next time